ready for take 3 of the quarter 2 review. At the end of every quarter, I try to look back and see performance wise how things have been going. I think I might have done like 5 of these total in the 8 years that I've been on YouTube, which is like a 5 out of 32, which is not a passing grade, but it's been tricky. Like I want to put it on the main channel, but who's going to watch it? It's like one of those internal memos. I think the documentation's important. I think the updates are useful, but for the average person, I don't know. It's I feel like YouTube in general has that weird middle ground between finished useful products, things that come out and then are done, and updates. I think it's because YouTube isn't really a social media in the conventional sense, and or maybe it's because there's a mixing between the professional and the background, and you get some weird effects as a result. I don't know. It's one of those things I think about a lot. Is I don't really want to dilute content. I don't want it to feel dated or topical or burdened with updates. But at the same time, if I make dedicated videos for them on the main channel, then it feels like I'm diluting content. So it's one of those catch 22s, I think. Unless you have a second channel. But no one knows about the second channel. It's still a secret club. So that's something. I think what's defined the past quarter is a loss of direction. And there's a lot going on. Uh, by which I mean a lot of competing projects. I think in terms of success, I feel like I have a much better research and somewhat developed toolkit, which I think has not been featured in any of the main channel content yet, but going forward will help with accuracy. And I think it's important, at least for me and maybe one person in the audience, to do my best to be accurate whenever I say something, especially about historical metagame. And I think I'm going to have a lot better confidence going forward with that. There's been some general difficulty with balancing being a productive member of society, like a full time job. That's not this. And then this second job, I guess. It's a little difficult to figure out. It's not consistent. It's difficult to get things going, and I don't have the most energy after work. It's one of those things, I think. Not a lot of focus, sometimes on the weekends, but sometimes there's other things. It's just one of those things, I think. On top of that, I do worry about channel identity, and it's one of those weird things. I feel like a lot of the discourse online is pretty metagame myopic. And it's not just the metagame, it's not just, 2005 GOAT format or 2009 Edison, I believe. Edison is 2009. Or, any of the other treasured formats. Hat is a treasured format, I'd say. Some people are nostalgic for all sorts of different formats, just for the record. I bet someone's nostalgic for Cleefort. Not me, but I bet someone is. Anyway, a lot of people are very focused on cards that are good at the time of the video's release, which is such a tiny, tiny fraction of what I think the game has to offer. I think in the future I'm going to be making a big What If Yu Gi Oh! Had Tears video, because I think that would be interesting. But first, we'd have to lay a lot of groundwork. Maybe there's going to be a several sections What If Wednesdays on this. I don't know, something in the future. I'm planning a What If Wednesday video next. So Q3, that's the video, which I guess that's good time to mention that ideally I wanted to get out one video a week, and I was able to maintain that for a few years while I was not gainfully employed. And then it went down a little bit. I think when I was struggling with some larger projects, occasionally I would miss a week. And then I got a full-time job, and then nothing happened in 2024, which was a rough year in terms of volume. I got a couple things out beginning of 2026, which is good. But a little bit of a production stall last quarter. I think the pace which is reasonable for me to be able to consistently accomplish is unfortunately one video a quarter. But I do want to put more time into them. I do think that there's definitely areas that are still lacking in my production, and I could have tighter, better, more impactful, more interesting, more accurate videos. I think there's a lot of little weaknesses. Occasionally I make mistakes. Occasionally I make blunders in terms of thinking that I remember something, but it didn't actually occur that way. Or if I do remember it and maybe it did occur that way, it's not representative of the larger game. You actually see this a lot where, like, you play online, and the online game, you get a whole bunch of different decks that are everywhere, but not necessarily high meta, which is interesting. I do like that that occurs, that we can have individual perceptions of the metagame, but not representative of the highest level of play. And even the highest level of play is debatably not the best within the formats. That's something that I think about a lot, is that a lot of formats aren't solved yet. Like even GOAT format. This is a video I tried to make for the 20-year anniversary of GOAT format last year. It was going to be a massive, like, 3-hour dissertation on GOAT format. It was going to explore theoretical niches, like ritual decks in GOAT format. I think have some potential, but I haven't figured out how to do it correctly. And it's because on paper, you see Sonic Bird and Manju and Senju. Those are on summon +1s in a format that has not a lot of card advantage. The ritual summon, terribly inefficient. So maybe the idea is you don't rely on the ritual summon and instead you use that as discard fodder, which could be interesting. Specifically, you could run Sonic Bird and then what is your name? The Beast Warrior that discards spell cards in order to pop spell or traps. Combination of those two cards would be interesting because that's a Winged Beast and a Beast Warrior, which means that you could also run Manticore of Darkness, and that's just recurring board presence. Because obviously you'd pop Chiron the Mage, I believe is the name of the Beast Warrior. You'd pop Chiron the Mage or your Sonic Bird and replace it with big Manticore of Darkness. That's something. I sort of wish that Ryza could be. I think Ryza's not in GOAT format, which is a little sad because that's another Wing Beast. But that's off the topic. Well, I guess it's not quite off the topic. I feel like if I put a big GOAT dissertation on the channel, it wouldn't be a big problem because it'd be a single video. But if I wanted to break it into smaller chunks, then maybe it would be. Like a whole month of GOAT format, I don't think would be relevant for all the viewers of the channel. And it's one of the reasons why I want to move some of the content onto a satellite channel. And I'm thinking about ways to do that. So that's something I'm working on. Like a history / alternate history slash theoretical tiering of the game channel. So why not put it on the main channel? Because don't want to dilute it. Don't want to muddle the identity. It is one of those things on YouTube. It's not just that you have a niche and then you cater to your niche. It's like you have a micro niche and then you cater to that. So, or to not feel frustrated by that. I think branching out is the right call. Another thing is that the bar on YouTube feels like it's getting higher and simultaneously that it's getting lower. I'd say that both the ceiling and the floor are becoming more extreme in terms of content creation. And for different reasons. And in different dimensions. I want to point that out too. It's not that these two things are on one graph. I think that in terms of reward hacking or specifically engineering videos to do well, but not in a way that benefits the audience, like think about Doritos, the food in the real world, where yes, this is extremely pleasurable to consume, but it is completely empty in everything that matters, like all the macronutrients, not calories. But it is calorically dense. It's not satiating. It encourages more hunger and more consumption without ever sating the appetite, which is a different dimension. I'm not talking about that, although I do see that a lot. The area I'm talking about is actual money being poured into things and time and very creative people online, but also companies that have the resources and the time and the ability to get larger projects off the ground. It just doesn't always feel homegrown in a lot of cases. At some points in YouTube history, it really did feel like it was a bunch of amateurs that were producing, and I think there's just a lot more of a corporate veneer. I think it's going hand in hand with the sponsorship, that you need the clean, inoffensive, and shiny appearance in order to attract the sponsors, and YouTube wants the sponsors, and it's just one of those things. I've heard that just the monetization strategy for anything always pushes things in this direction. And it's happened with art, it's happened with commodities, it's happened with mall culture. And it's interesting to think about that this is just that next level of goods that have been fundamentally tainted by monetization structure. But that's the bar getting higher, is, larger teams, corporate interests, and money and better training, and people actually becoming better at the production of the quality of the content. Like the tools are getting cheaper, easier to use. A lot of things can be done on mobile now, which makes me sound old. On smartphones, I don't know if people call them smartphones anymore. On tablets, on the pads, I don't know. Them children with their Donkey Kongs and their bell bottoms and their iPads. The other end of it, though, I do feel like there is the high volume, low effort, high quantity problem, the crab in a bucket mentality, where you just need to get as much out as possible as you can. And this has gotten way, way worse with AI, which is actually the next point I wanted to talk about. But on this one, I feel like you spend 10 minutes making a 10-minute video, or it's just rambling for a little bit. I know, this is pots and kettles right now, but this is on the second channel. There's no monetization, and this is just voicing concern and talking about how things have been going. But with the AI, it's a different ballpark. I think it feels fundamentally different and fundamentally wrong. It's because there's no muse in the machine, And I think the Beyond channel will definitely need to get a dedicated video on this topic, but it doesn't feel like there's a communication of meaning between two human parties anymore. And not in the sense that there's some intermediates between them. Like anytime that you communicate with another person using language or any abstraction that can be construed as language, so not just words, but like sign language or symbology or semiotics or any of the sort, there's always going to be a level of intent and a friction between the intent and the interpretation. That's just the nature of communication. But I feel like the intent is not there in the first stage when there's the AI development. That you can put in a paragraph as a prompt, which I actually don't think most people are putting in full paragraphs of description for their video ideas. I think they're pretty short, like maybe a sentence or two. Hey, chat, make me a video on the ethics of cheating in Yu-Gi-Oh or something. I don't really even know what the AI content is. And it's weird because sometimes I see videos that I think that the creator is actually passionate about, but still chooses to use the AI to write the script, which is really, really weird. And then sometimes they narrate the script that the AI wrote. I have a lot of difficulty pronouncing words because they've never read the word before, or maybe they've read the word and never heard it spoken before. Or maybe it's just a better text or a worse text to speech than I've thought of before. I don't know. It's one of those things. But yeah, it does feel like there's a creative doomsday clock situation where there's a matter of time between now and some point in the future where it's going to tick over and it's just not going to be the same creative environment anymore. And that's scary. I did write to a friend about this, and here's the message I sent. Do you ever feel like there is a doomsday clock for creative expressions? I saw a video essay yesterday, and I've been noticing lately a lot of AI involvement in YouTube. It's in the scripts and the narration and the background footage. And to be fair, I'm talking about computer generated footage. Stock footage has always been something that I don't really like because I don't think it's really related or artistically beneficial. I think it's jangling keys in front of your audience. But this is a whole level away from that. I guess it could be more intentional, but I don't think it's better, if that makes sense. I also see a lot of visuals which are just there for stimulation instead of utility. Objects wobbling around when it would be a lot better for reading if they just stood still. Like this one bugs me a lot, where it makes way more sense to keep your block of text stationary so that the audience can actually read it. And then there's a whole level of involvement that I think about, and then it's like information density compared to the amount of time, the amount of attention required for the audience. Because if they're consistently pausing the video or if they're having to read text that's on the video while there is narration in the video, I think you're running into some problems with the medium. I do think that there's a solution, possibly an elegant solution for this, where you could automatically pause the video when you hover over elements of it, but I don't know. It's one of those things. We're bumping into growing pains within the medium of expression, I think. Because like in TV, you wouldn't really do this, or in film, you wouldn't really do this because you don't have the expectation that the audience can pause, which has its benefits and it has its problems. And in books, you don't have this problem at all because you can just put more text and the reader reads at their own pace. Well, maybe you still have this problem. I was reading a textbook from the 80s and it was laid out so horribly that it kept being really, really frustrating because it would reference a diagram and would either be 2 pages before the text or 2 pages after the text. And the text would continue onto other pages and the diagrams were not spaced out correctly. And it was just way too hard to follow. Like a web page would be a lot better because you could scale the images and you could use them better anyway. Ignore it. Proper ramble video this time. Aren't you glad? Um, back to the quote. I feel like the whole environment is shifting to reward hacking, and it's giving me the most banal existential crisis. And this isn't in reference to reward hacking. This is the Dorito. Not satiating, calorically dense, no real nutritional value. That might just be a problem in general. I'm also worried that the more generic video ideas I was planning on pursuing will now be seen as AI generated. Like a historical meta analysis of how good was Dark Magician actually. And I wanted to actually do this with a bunch of different archetypes, but I think I'd start with the big ones. I think I'd start with Dark Magician and Blue Eyes White Dragon because I think they're really interesting that for brief periods of times, these were tier 1 meta decks. And that is pretty cool. And Dark Magician actually got some time in the sun and then got what is it? Magician Souls got banned and then had some more time in the sun later and still sees a little bit of experimentation now because they keep releasing new support for it. And Blue Eyes White Dragon won Worlds one time. So I think it'd be a fun video actually. But we could extend this to some other archetypes. Like how good were Morphtronics? Because Morphtronics have some tops. How good were Kawaki Meru? Not bad. And maybe we go in the other direction and is there ever a point in the game's history where Guardians could have been good? Like, how bad actually? It's just one of those things. It's been really disheartening about how long until the next automated content will remove the viability of human expression. And it has. Not just the economic viability, but the dilution effect removes the potential for interpersonal interactions. To me, art only exists as a bridge between the artist and the audience, where an intent may exist, but art only occurs upon audience interpretation. Do you think that's irrational? It's been on my mind consistently for months, and I know one solution is getting comfortable with making art for no one and moving the more generic content to a satellite channel, but it's still weighing on me. That art for no one, I think, is a pretty unsettling thought that we might have to think about in the future. And that is, I guess it's been like the noble artist pursuit is you create something not with the expectation of success or even the expectation of attention or any degree of understanding from your audience. It is like the most pure expression of something that is personal and meaningful to you, but externalized and available for others. I guess there's an even deeper version of this. That's not just art for no one, but art that exists and is never shared. Like there's never even an attempt to put it out there. Yeah. All this is coming together, and I think it wraps up into a fear of losing what I have now, because I do like the main channel, and the revenue has been very, very nice in paying rent a couple months. There's great loss aversion. I don't want to move away from it. I don't want to lose the audience that I built. I don't want to get away from it. But at the same time, I think might be stagnating and I need to change and develop. It's definitely a curveball, and maybe one that's hitting everyone at the same time in different ways. Maybe it's multiple curveballs. Maybe it's just one really big one and we're all in the line of fire. Regardless, what are we doing about it? I do want to point out that there has been some definite success or progress, at the very least, made this quarter. Not necessarily visible, a lot of it's beneath the surface. But I'm pretty confident in my meta corpus, or the big 15,000 deck format sorted and month sorted deck list files that I have. And they're future proofed. They got card IDs now. They are sorted so that they're easy to put into the deck profiler. That's not a problem. But they haven't been archetype labeled yet, because that's running into its own issues. I think in the future, I'm probably going to do computer code and theoretical development during the summer months, just because there's a lot of heat and a lot of inconsistency. So things that I am working on within the formats is a timeline for product release. I have the data structure done. That's not the hard part. Getting a good program to develop visuals for it is more difficult, especially if I want to be able to convert this into a video format. I'd probably do it in Blender, make a timeline video in Blender. They look pretty good from my opinion when people make timeline videos in Blender. I also want to point out micro formats, and the way I've been breaking down formats is based on two constraints. The most recent booster set, so Legend of Blue Eyes into Metal Raiders, is, the formats based on the booster set, as well as the ban list. So, new ban list comes out before the next booster, new format. New format comes out, or new booster comes out before the next ban list, new format. And that's generated about 181 formats, sort of. It's actually lower than that because I think there's like 10 to 15 tiny little formats that I'm probably going to ignore because I don't think that there were any tournaments conducted during those times. So, like, a tournament will happen, and then there'll be a week period where technically a new booster has come out, but not the next ban list, or a new ban list, but not the next booster. So you would have a format that could exist within those 7 days. But I don't think any tournaments were conducted during that time. I definitely don't have evidence of any tournaments conducted during that time. So the other half of that is the micro formats, and that's certain times in the game's history, not often, but sometimes, the metagame isn't changed by the next booster set, but by smaller sets. And I can think of like Domain Monarchs, for instance. That was a structure deck that revolutionized the playstyle and had big meta impact. Same thing with the Dinosaur structure deck. I don't think that there are any times where like one video game promo card had a radical impact on the game, but maybe actually Exchange of Spirit could have, because that card was pretty powerful. But we'll get to that later. On top of that, I have created a pretty robust infrastructure for processing deck lists, being able to convert from the text-based ones to JSON files, and convert from the card names to card IDs to make it more robust. And then I can actually generate visuals. And there's a bunch of different templates that I can generate now. And it's done pretty automatically. which is good. Great for workflow. I do want to point out some setbacks that I've encountered this year. Big ones are like Jaden's Endless Extra Deck Part 3 is just taking forever, and every time I try to get back to working on it, they released new cards. Like specifically for Jaden. Which is ridiculous. Like, they released Clay Guardian most recently, I want to say. And there were new evil heroes. Who had new evil heroes? And there's more elemental heroes. And then this is on top of just the general problem of more generic fusion monsters. So more generic as in fusion monsters which are in greater number, which are generic. But also fusion monsters which are comparatively easier to summon than their predecessors, because that makes the actual process way more difficult to determine what Jaden could potentially even summon when you're dealing with the more generic monsters. Another setback has just been diversification, and then on top of that, just summer heat and schedule instability. And that's just because it's the summer and school's out, and it's 28.6 degrees in here right now, which is 83.3 degrees in American. So, and it gets hot. I don't think it's reached 30 degrees in here, but it's gotten hotter. So, just makes it more difficult to focus and record. But yeah, as for this quarter's trajectory, I'm still going to try for a quarterly video. It's going to be a What If Wednesday. I'm losing my voice. I've tried to record this several times today. Sorry you're getting such unpolished content on the bonus channel. But yeah, I'm moving into some alternate outputs. So that's going to include some new pursuits and some placeholders. You'll get to see where that means later. There's also going to be some changes in the creation ethos again. And that's... I do feel like my hand's being forced a little bit in that direction. But, you know, doing nothing and waiting for the point where I'm replaced is not as good as doing something and it arriving anyway. Which is really sad. But yeah. On a lighter note, though, I am going to start working with musical integration. Like, one of the big things has been the copyright being horrible, like, all the time. But I'm going to try to loosen up a little and use the actual YouTube library to its, to its full effect. I've downloaded some songs, I've thought about the songs. Now I need to start breaking the songs down into pieces and then figuring out how to work with my vocal range, how to segment videos into sections, and how to use them for transitions and things. It's a new facet of creation that I haven't explored before, but I want to. Definitely want to. So, new mountains to climb is always how I think about it. Like, Alexander wept because there were no more lands to conquer, but if you were a creative person, like pursuing new creative pursuits, there are always more mountains on the horizon. Yeah. I think that's it for the the video. Yeah. Ramble number 1. Oh, no. That's one of the placeholders on a different channel. So, yeah. That's it for the quarterly report and update. And hopefully get a little bit more done this quarter. It's hard. I always sound so defeated and apologetic. And maybe I should change that. But there is definitely a, negative metallic taste left in my mouth. For there is no Muse in the machine. And it tastes like rust. It's vanishing. It's empty. And it's ubiquitous. But we'll get the other channel later. Maybe I just write everything every day. Just try to do that. Get it out that way.